DragonCon. Carol from the BritTrack here. I'm the director. And with me to talk about a Doctor Who potpourri, a plethora of topics, are these wonderful, lovely people. With me today is Jagi Lamlighter, author, editor, writer, teacher. And I'm so glad that you're with us. Hi, Jagi. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. I also have Sue Kisenwether with me, co-host of Women at Warp on the Roddenberry Podcast Network, discussing feminism and Star Trek. How are you today?
I am great. And today I guess it'll be feminism and Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
Knowing me, probably.
No.
We'll see what happens. So we also have with us Keith DeCandido, who has the completely irrelevant distinction of being the first native-born American citizen to write linear adult Doctor Who fiction. He also edited Big Finish Short Trips anthology, The Quality of Leadership, which has the first ever Who fiction by Peter David, Diane Duane, and Una McCormick. He has been a fan of Doctor Who since he was 8, which was a very long time ago. He's done other stuff too, which you can find out about on DeCandido.net. Hi, Keith. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. We also have JM Tuffley, and JM writes about pop culture, contributes to needcoffee.com, makes many Spotify playlists. How are you?
So many. I'm good.
We also have with us Michael Falkner, writer, podcaster, and author of the Timestamp Project, a weekly story-by-story look at Doctor Who from the very beginning. The Timestamps Project and much more can be found on Creative Critically at creativecritically.net. How are you doing, Michael?
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome. So this is a little different. If anyone's ever seen the roller panel, which is something that's common that you at DragonCon, here at the BritTrack, we do some slightly different. We actually have a wheel that spins and picks random topics, and I'll ask our wonderful fans a question, and then we'll try to just get into it and talk about all the things Doctor Who. So, are you ready to spin the wheel and see what happens?
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right, here we go.
How do I buy a vowel?
Should I be hoping for big bucks or a whammy?
Probably a whammy.
No whammy. No whammy.
No whammy.
Ooh, companions. Okay, so with Doctor Who companions. So Doctor Who companions, who is the worst?
That's a hard question.
Who's one that you could absolutely just live without, as far as that's concerned? Anybody want to start off?
Adric. It's the easy answer, but Adric.
Why Adric?
I just didn't like him from the beginning. He just kind of grated on my nerves, and I feel kind of bad about saying that because I did, and the word is not enjoy, but I did enjoy the way the story went when he left the series, as he sacrificed himself to defeat the Cybermen. That was a very good ending for him. But just in general, I did not like the Wonderkin kind of character. He was one that made Wesley Crusher look good, to me, and it's just like no, let's just keep moving,
Okay, fair.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Keith.
I was going to say, in particular, Adric, I actually liked Adric with Tom Baker, but he didn't work with Peter Davison. I also didn't like Rose with David Tennant. I loved Rose with Christopher Eccleston, though. But probably I think the worst companion was Harry Sullivan.
Ooh,
I just wanted to punch him in the throat repeatedly.
Ooh, mic drop.
Shaji, what about you?
I'm never good with words. I kind of like everybody, but Donna took a long time to grow on me. Like now I like her, but I didn't like her for a long time. She came pretty close after Rose, if I remember, didn't she? And I loved Rose, so that it's hard to let go of the ones you love. And so for a long time, I would have said she was really not my favorite. By the end, I came around to rather liking her. So I don't know if that counts, but
okay, Jam.
Okay, point of order. Does Chameleon count?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
On TARDIS.
Okay, that. And it's a cop-out, but there it is. Because I could defend Adric, actually, because I think, as originally introduced, I wish they had leaned into more of his criminality. Kind of like kind of more of a Ferris Bueller kind of genius kind of criminality thing. But I think they kind of glazed over that because I don't know if it was a combination of Waterhouse not being able to carry it that way or that sort of thing. But I'll go with Chameleon because that's the cop out. But yeah, Chameleon because he kept failing.
All right, Sue.
This is why I'm glad we're virtual because otherwise I'd get stoned. I don't like River Song.
That's fair.
Why is that?
This is nothing about Alex Kingston. I love the actor. But River is, to me, especially when she's with Matt Smith, that is a toxic relationship to me. She literally breaks her own hand to get out of handcuffs and not upset the person that she's supposed to be in love with. And like, that's just, I can't, it doesn't work for me. The most I have liked her has actually been with Capaldi.
Yeah. And Capaldi has a good effect on people because I think Claire was a lot better with Capaldi than with Matt Smith when she wasn't a plot device. And I think River Song was a lot better being removed from similarly the Matt Smith plot device that she was. So yeah, I can see that.
So
I wish they had done what they did with River generally, is have a companion who met the Doctor out of sequence with how she met him out of sequence with how he met her. That was a brilliant idea that should be done more often. I wish.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And I think where it might have gone off the rails for me, and this is a very personal thing, it's that they tried to make it a romantic plot.
Yeah.
And I think they put too much, for my taste, they put too much into that. And then, I mean, it was all woven together, and the Matt Smith story was so complicated and convoluted, and it was just, that era, let's say, is not necessarily for me. And leave it at that today, because we're being kind.
Okay, we got a minute left on this topic. Real quick.
Second worst?
Real quick. Favorite companion from Doctor Who. So Keith.
Tegan.
Sue.
Donna.
JM.
I'm going to cheat, but Jamie and Zoe.
Okay. Jagi.
I'm touring between Rose and Amy.
Okay. Michael.
Sarah Jane Smith.
Oh, that's a good one.
I mean, I've got the owl. I mean,
it's pretty solid as far as all Paul is concerned. So, okay. We have 30 seconds left. Michael. Of the brand new companions, or 3 companions, who is your favorite?
Oh, the new ones. I'm gonna say Graham.
Graham?
Yeah.
Who voted Graham? Who says the best?
It's Bradley Walsh. How can you argue?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's fair. We'll see if this comes up again for a topic. You ready for a new one?
Sure. That was painless.
Here we go. That was painless of the first one. Here we
Because
go.
there's nobody in an audience to yell at me.
It all starts easy.
And you don't have to read the comments unless you want to.
Ooh, comics. Doctor Who comics.
Okay.
Here we go. The starter.
Knowledge of Doctor Who comics is like, I mean,
Yep, about that.
Right? Okay. Doctor Who comics. Who wants to tackle this topic for Doctor Who comics? Where are they? What's the deal with them? How long have they been around? Like, what's worth reading?
The only ones that I have read are when they did the crossover with the Star Trek comics. And the Fourth Doctor meets up with Kirk and Spock in that era of the Enterprise. And then Matt Smith meets up with the Next Generation crew. And the Borg and the Cybermen team up. Go figure, right? Because obviously the Borg are inspired by the Cybermen. But those are the only ones I've read, but they were a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
They sound good.
End of opinions.
Right.
The IDW thing, I believe that is the only Doctor Who IDW you can still buy.
Oh.
digitally, because I think you can get it on Comixology because it's tied in with the Star Trek license because IDW doesn't have Doctor Who anymore. So I think that's the only thing of the IDW run you can actually go out and get. So but it's a great story and it's very well painted. I did like that.
The art is great.
Yeah.
In the 80s, there was a wonderful thing there were a bunch of different Doctor Who comic strips. They were doing Tom Baker, and they really took advantage of the fact that they weren't restricted by the BBC's minuscule budget, so they created really interesting aliens. And he had and there was one comic book with Colin Baker where he had a companion who was a penguin named Frobisher.
Yes, Frobisher.
But my absolute favorite Doctor Who comic book actually doesn't have the Doctor in it. It was a serial thing they did as a backup feature called Absalom Dark Dalek Killer. It was basically this guy, this grizzled, mercenary type who just traveled around the galaxy hunting Daleks.
Nice.
That was pretty
really. That sounds awesome. Where would you find something like that?
I don't know where it's available now, to be perfectly honest. This was I saw these Marvel reprinted the Doctor Who comics again in the 80s, and that's how I got first exposed to them. I don't know how they're available now, if they're available now.
Okay,
but there's a lot of the British comics writers and artists of the 80s that the people who later go on to do things like for Vertigo and such. In the 90s, got their start doing Doctor Who comics. Guys like David Lloyd and I'm blanking on the names now. But
Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison.
Yeah, and
a lot of the 2008 guys ended up at Marvel UK, and a lot of them worked on Doctor Who.
Yep.
I did not know that. It's very interesting. You guys have 2 more minutes of comics.
So where I'm gonna second the Frobisher thing, because anytime, and you know this, anytime anybody asks me what companion I would like on the series, I always say Frobisher. That's my stock answer. Because, and also I have it in my head that Frobisher, Hugh Laurie is Frobisher's voice, just because.
That I can see. So who is Frobisher? Like, can you explain?
He's a penguin.
He is a shape-shifting detective penguin.
Yes.
That is really all you need.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
I assume it's Hugh Laurie in Bertie Wooster, George from Blackadder mode rather than Gregory House mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I believe Frobisher is one of Grant Morrison's that he added to.
Might be.
Yeah. And Grant Morrison has this really great run before he goes off to do other things. And so I really like that one. And I believe you can get that from Titan. I think Titan has the reprints now of that Grant Morrison run. Because they released a Grant Morrison. I think IDW released a Grant Morrison specific collection. And that carried over when Titan got the license. So you can grab that. I think it's called Doctor Who Classics Grant Morrison. I think that's the name of it.
So is Titan the current license holder?
I believe so. Titan is the current license holder, and they are the ones that are currently printing the reprints of the IDW stuff, which I think carried over. A lot of that carried over. And then I think they are doing, I don't know if they're actually publishing a new comic at the moment. I think they're doing the new 13th Doctor stuff, but I think that's the only line that's continuing.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, with the world the way it is right now.
Yeah, they basically had lines on IDW, the old IDW, and I think some of it carried over to Titan for a while. They had lines basically on at least all of the Doctors at some point or another. Some of them had miniseries, but I think 4 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13 all had series ongoings, which kind of...
It's my alarm. All right.
Was that the 5-minute alarm?
Yeah, that was a 5-minute alarm.
Wow.
I know.
Buy stuff. Consume.
Okay, here we go. Let's see what we get. Ooh, other villains. So on this list in their own categories are Daleks and Cybermen, and they're completely separated out, and so is the Master. So any other villains that stood out? It could be a villain that was in a one-off. It could be someone that was, or something that was repeated. As far as who was this, it was just scary, super scary, intimidating, or just really, really good.
I'd have to say the first one that I would bring up would be the Weeping Angels.
Mhm.
I had an experience where I was at a really nice Franciscan monastery with a Catholic family that had like 6 kids. And the kids came up to this beautiful painted angel and they suddenly screamed, "Don't blink," and ran away. And I thought, this has affected our whole society.
That's fair. That's fair.
So I think they did a really good job. I mean, so much so that people see statues of angels in graveyards and stuff now, and that's like their first go-to. So
Okay.
I think that they really hit it out of the box with that one because it sometimes villains come up and they're creepy, they're cool, but they don't really grasp. This one really kind of grasped. The whole society seems to know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they grow inside your head, like, no one wants to remember that part. They grow in your head, which is just crazy. Michael, what do you think?
Oh, I had two popped to mind immediately. The first was the Autons, and the second was the Jadoon. And I want to go with the Jadoon just because, I mean, they are kind of cool, these walking rhinoceros creatures, but they're villainous to me because they have an absolute adherence to the law. Like they're like paladins from D&D. If you do something wrong, they're going to take care of you in one way or another, and usually not a good way. And it's just an unstoppable force of these marching, behemoths that you can't do anything to stop. And Doctor Who always operates in these shades of gray, and the Doctor always finds a way to work those shades of gray to get through to solve a problem. There are no shades of gray with the Jadoon. It's right or wrong, black or white.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Keith?
I want to go with Sutek, who's only one Tom Baker one, but just that voice. I first saw Pyramids of Mars when I was like 10, and and I can't remember the actor's name now, but the actor who played Sutek just absolutely scared the living. That is like the perfect villain voice forever. So I although I will agree with Jagi about the Weeping Angels, because that was a brilliant concept.
This is true. JM?
I'm going to go with the Zygons because they haven't been on very much, and there aren't bad Zygon stories.
That is fair.
Basically, everybody else in the canon has got at least a stinker or two in their back catalog, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the Zygons haven't been on that often because they don't know what to do with them. But when somebody figures it out, that's when they show up. So I'm good with that.
Okay, that's
And they're just creepy, and they can be anyone. So it cuts down the budget.
This is true. Sue, what do you think, Sue?
I think if we're going scary, I would go the Vashta Nerada. And it takes so many tropes, right? This lurking in the shadows, the mind control, and it puts it all together, and it's just, I don't like it. And then you got a glowing skull in a spacesuit, and do not watch After Dark.
I felt that way about the Silence. Okay.
That was my second one. I almost said that. Yeah, they were the scariest.
They were the Van Gogh painting come to life. Like they're just terrifying. And I don't like dolls of any kind. I'm not a fan of dolls. And so anytime like the Clockwork dolls or the little kid dolls or any dolls of any kind, I'm just like, nope, I'm good. I think there's just no way. So who's like the coolest that you're like, oh, that's a really great idea for a villain from the show, from classic or new?
I love the Clockwork monsters from the one with
Girl in the Fireplace.
Girl in the Fireplace. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that was excellent.
Yeah, at 55 years, it gets hard to remember titles. But I just love the idea of robots that were made from clockworks rather than the traditional, computerized electronic stuff.
Yeah. JM, what do you think?
I always kind of thought Fenric was at least a creepy one. It's a creepy idea. It's not just an entity, but it's the idea.
Yeah.
And it's both of those things, which I think is really a cool concept and a really good way they work that in.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, I'll have to go with the Autons, just because it takes something that you're walking through the mall and you see a mannequin staring back at you displaying clothes. You're like, ooh, no, and just keep walking.
Right. This is very true. Mine is obscure. It's the Sea Devils.
Yeah.
They're just really, the idea was really, really cool.
I love that story so much.
I know, right? He sword fights the master.
Right?
Come on, right? Okay, here we go. Next spin. All right. Let's see what we get. New series, Doctor Who. New series, Doctor Who. Okay, so for new series, Doctor Who, let's see. What do you think is the major thing that makes the new series significantly different from the classic series? Significantly. Who wants to start off?
Okay.
Okay. JM.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Okay. Well, first of all, I mean, you can see the budget. And I don't mean this in a bad way, because, and I think I gave this as an answer to something else, but, you know, the thing about Doctor Who and the thing you love about Doctor Who is that, you know, it really ignores its limitations, like, all the time. And you can sort of see the ambition on screen, even in the 70s, even when the monsters were bubble wrap, you could see it. The thing with the new series, though, is particularly in the switch between Davies to Moffat, you could tell that colors had changed. You could tell it's kind of the cinematography changed a lot, but also that there was cinematography in terms of the entire series. That things just look a lot better, and you can kind of see things more, and the visualization is just better. Okay, Keith.
The dedication to giving the companions actual lives. In the original series, very rarely, with occasional exceptions, like Sarah Jane would occasionally go off and do reporting. Tegan was trying to get back to Heathrow, but aside from that, they just wandered onto the TARDIS, and that was it. There was no indication that they left anything behind, or that there was any effect that it had. And just the fact that these companions actually, like, the decision has an impact to go off and travel with this crazy person in a blue box.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, like, two teachers just walked off and left.
Two teachers, a doctor.
Yeah.
They could come back at any time. They're in a time machine.
But they didn't use it. It's not like he could aim very well.
Right.
From a fan perspective, I think that one of the big differences is distribution in the US. Right? Because for so long it was, if you watched Doctor Who, you watched it maybe on PBS and it was probably Tom Baker, right? But with the new series, it took some catching up to do, but I mean, it was on Sci-Fi for a while, but now we get it to the point when there's a big deal, we get a simulcast in the US, which, you know, certainly wasn't happening in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Yeah. So I think that has, from a fandom perspective, really allowed it to grow and have an international fan community that it was a lot smaller before we had this opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the Doctor's different. I think that older Doctors were more like these wise observer, not always wise. I mean, they changed, but they didn't seem as personally involved, at least in, I haven't seen all of them, obviously, but I mean, I guess some people have seen I haven't seen all of them, but the episodes I've seen, the newer Doctors, there's been a number of times where they've fallen in love, or their own, like, livelihood or their own sanity seem to be more on the line. Seem to me like they've got more strings on the Doctor. The Doctor's more personally engaged emotionally in some of the newer ones, not every episode, obviously, but.
That's a great point. Michael?
Yeah, to go hand in hand with that, I was going to say romance. The classic series really didn't deal with romance that often, just as kind of a sub point to move things along. That the Doctor, having been with humanity so long, really has begun to experience romance in the newer series more than the classic series. And for better or worse, I mean, Sue and I've had a couple discussions on this as well. How the show doesn't handle it well sometimes, it handles it well and other times. But just the concept of taking an alien who has been with humanity so long and then saying, now let's throw in the concept of love and friendship and all these other emotional ties that make it really difficult to do the job of the Doctor sometimes.
But to Jagi's point, the Doctor literally changed in the story, right? Because the break that we don't have is the Time War.
Yeah.
Right? That is, war is going to change a person. So there is a narrative reason for that change in the character of the Doctor as well, between the classic series and the new series.
Oh yeah. And that he had to basically create a whole version of himself that he then pretended didn't exist for a long time because it was so traumatic, and the effect of, particularly in Eccleston's Doctor, the PTSD was all over his pores in that first season, and that's gonna affect you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I wish they had done more with the War Doctor. Just
because John Hurt is awesome.
Well, yeah.
That's true. This is true. So, okay, one episode of the new series in our last 30 seconds that stands out as like your all-time favorite.
Whoa.
All-time favorite. This is it. We got 30 seconds. JM.
I'm gonna go with the first Neil Gaiman episode. I'm gonna go with I forget the name of it, but it's the TARDIS, the one where Doctor's wife where Saran Jones is the TARDIS. So gotta go with that. It's just a love letter to the whole show.
That's very true. Keith, 9 seconds.
The one with Derek Jacobi as the Doctor, where they went to the end of time.
Oh, that
Utopia.
Utopia.
Okay.
That one.
All right.
Derek Jacobi.
Sorry.
Saved by the iPhone alarm.
Okay. Spin again and see what we offers. Spinoffs. Spinoffs. Okay.
Okay.
All right. For spinoffs, those that exist, right? Those that exist, and those that you wish to see, those that exist in you, those that you wish to see. So, for example, for me, like Torchwood is like probably my favorite of all of them. But one that I really want to see is one that was pitched for a while, which was the Brigadier Unit spinoff, which was this rumor that had been around for a while. So those would be mine. So who wants to get us started with?
I'll go. Prognosters. Because that seems like it's the cross between a procedural detective series and Sherlock. And that sounds like really good. And I kind of want that. And I know Big Finish is doing it, but I have a thing with Big Finish, but I want to see it. So, that.
That's a good point. All right, Michael, what do you think?
The one that I absolutely love is the Sarah Jane Adventures. I have been watching that for the first time for this Timestamps project. I am just in love with it, with its wholesome nature. The one I kind of want to see is the spinoff of what happened to Susan after she left the TARDIS and what she's been up to. Because as far as we know, maybe, I don't know, she is part Time Lord. So, is she going to live forever, just out there on Earth by herself with these survivors, or what's going to go on with that story? I would love to find out.
Well, that's a great one. Keith?
I'm having a moment because I can't remember any of the characters' names, but the lizard woman and her companion and the Sunfarin.
Yes, the Prognosters.
You had said that right. Crap. I was trying to remember. I wasn't paying attention to the thing. I'm sorry. Okay, I second what JM said. That was easy.
Part Sherlock, part Avengers. You got to go for it.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it's tailor-made. The other thing is I want to sing the praises specifically of Torchwood Children of Earth, which the first 2 seasons and the 4th season of Torchwood were incredibly hit or miss, but that single storyline in the 3rd season was everything Torchwood could have been and should have been, and it was an absolutely brilliant story that could never have been done as any other Doctor Who spinoff. It had to be a Torchwood story.
That is the best that show ever is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's also what sold. I mean, when I found out Peter Capaldi was going to be the Doctor, after seeing him as in Children of Earth, I was like, yeah, he can do no wrong. He'll be fine, because he was amazing in that.
Okay, Sue.
I have 2, but I'm not sure they could really sustain their own series. So maybe miniseries, maybe special. But I'd love to see what happened to Sally Sparrow.
Ooh.
Yes.
And I would love to see Clara flying around the universe in her diner.
Yes.
That could be pretty cool. Jagi, what do you think?
Well, I second Michael. I would say go with the Sarah Jane, the one that was kind of for kids, which I thought was cool. But if I got to make one up, I'd like to see Amy and Rory. And unlike Sue, I really loved River's songs. So I mean, I could have River popping in and out. I keep thinking that they said that Amy and Rory were stuck in this New York that had too many time weirdness to get out. I keep thinking, can't they just go to Chicago and get picked up there?
I had the board of like places they could have gone besides Metro New York. Like, can't they go to Boston? What?
Yeah, exactly.
Jersey, everything's legal in Jersey.
Like, just take the train. Just take the train.
But the possibility of adventures in New York in that time period are plenty also.
Yeah, they can do that. A
Right?
friend of mine and I have talked at length about, okay, so he got the doctor just goes back to any other place on the earth at that time, sends a guy with a note, gets them to get on a train, picks them up somewhere else. But even them on their own, I love them. I thought they did a really great job, and I would love to see them do more.
Right? Or just like you mentioned Alex Kingston. Alex Kingston in like a white collar / Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
He's an archaeologist. It makes sense. It would be really interesting to see something kind of wild like that. Nobody mentioned Canine and Company.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
I do adore Canine and Company. Don't get me wrong.
But they already have Scooby Doo. That's already a thing.
Oh, Saved by the Bell. All right. No
Groovy
talking.
chase sequence music. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Right. Absolutely.
I like that.
All right. Let's go to our spinner. See what we got.
Yes, the spinner that gave us spinoffs. Haha.
Oh, companions again. Okay, so we have the option.
Can
Do
we
we want to
spin again? I think
do we
we
wanna
should try
again?
spin again.
again? Okay.
There's
All
a
right.
lot of cool stuff there we haven't got to.
Yeah.
Spin again. All right, spinner. Give us something cool. Ooh, producers.
Okay.
Can we go back
Producers.
to companions? Let's just kidding.
No, let's go back to the last one.
Okay, 5 minutes on the timer. Producers.
Verity Lambert for the win.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, we wouldn't have this without her.
Yes.
Right? She fought for the show. She knew she was making a kids show, but she also knew that parents would be watching with their kids and was able to create a show that appealed to the whole family, to anybody who would be watching it, so that it would have the longevity that it does. I mean, there's no way she could have known. We'd be talking about it in 2020 with this year that it's been. But we have Verity Lambert to thank for the entire franchise, period, to the end.
Especially in a male-driven, business like television, especially in the '60s. To have the gumption and the fortitude to stand up and say no, this, and to add on to that, having a Harris or Waris Hussein, her co-producer. I found out a couple of years back that he's gay, and so it's like now you're throwing all these things into the mix in a particularly very straight-laced society and business. Yeah, I can agree with that completely.
But it was the perfect show for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm gonna say Barry Letts.
Yeah.
Because not just for the large chunk of time he runs the show, but he is the guy that kind of took us from, Troughton to Pertwee, and that huge change of, more of the ensemble and, color and, all of those things. And, also, kicking off the Tom Baker era, but just does a lot to revitalize the show and kind of make it a bit more of a populist show that I think was important for kind of the show to grow.
Okay, that's completely fair. I mean, we did get Bessie, right?
Yep.
out of that, and all the other cool, awesome things, and the love of ruffles, right?
Ruffles are good.
This is a good
Not for
point.
me, but ruffles, yeah. Other people, sure.
Crushed velvet and ruffles.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to give some love to Graham Williams and Philip Hinchcliffe. A lot of times people tend to think of John Nathan Turner as the guy who was the producer when Tom Baker was on. He was only there for the last couple seasons of Tom Baker.
Mhm.
And Tom Baker's glory years were, and of course Baker deserves a lot of the credit because he was awesome. But this is the version of Doctor Who that really made Doctor Who an international phenomenon.
Yeah.
And I really think that Hinchcliffe in particular, his work on it was a lot of what made it appealing to a larger audience. And I think he deserves some credit for that. And so does Russell Davis for also, like Verity Lambert, he fought really hard to get Doctor Who on the air. It was an effort. The BBC did not want to do this.
Mhm.
And only because his star was rising because of the other successful work he'd done, allowed him to say, all right, fine, we'll let you have your little Doctor Who show, fine, whatever. And it turned into this.
And he was the right guy to modernize the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he might have not been the right guy to continue the show, but he was the right guy to come in and modernize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. And then, like, why is it that with Doctor Who, there's a lot of talk about the producers,
Mm-hmm.
and it almost seems like because it's been around for so long, the producers are such an integral, essential part of discussing the show. So why is this a thing?
Part of it, I think, is something that JM said before. You mentioned about how when Moffat took over from Davies, the cinematography looked different. And that's actually, to some extent, true of almost every producer puts their own imprint on what they're doing. You know, when John Nathan Turner took over, Tom Baker, everything was a little different. It was more what he wanted. You know, the Moffat had a very different style from Davis, and Chibnall has a different style from both of them. And it's obvious in Doctor Who in particular, the showrunner has a very outsized impact on the feel of the show. So I think that's part of why it gets discussed.
Yeah, I think there's much more of a molding from the producers of Doctor Who than a lot of other TV. Whereas, you know, this is the arc of the season, right? Like that is the producer's story. Yeah. So it all comes back to them where, you know, even though other shows are serialized, it doesn't seem to come back to like a single producer or showrunner as much with other properties.
And I think as each producer kind of puts their own stamp on it, it gives us the thing that we kind of love, or you tear your hair out about Doctor Who, is that the show blows itself up.
Yeah. That's a good point to end on. Absolutely. Okay. All right. Let's see what the spinner gives us next.
Spin.
Ooh, major tropes and motifs of Doctor Who. Major tropes and motifs. Okay. This is a serious topic.
And you got 5 minutes. Good luck.
Yeah, 5 minutes to talk about motifs and tropes. Okay. One you could talk about, one you love or one you hate. So what are the tropes that which
I think this counts. I think the Doctor's love of wonder that carries him. Each guy plays it differently, but they tend to do something with it. This sense that he's you know, the reason he's out here doing adventures and things is that he thinks it's neat. It matters to him or her, you know, and each time it's taking on a different look depending on the actor and how they're playing the particular version. But it's part of the motif of the Doctor between characters is that he just thinks the universe is a great place. There's a positiveness to it.
Oh yeah. Anyone else?
I was gonna say the trope that is a fan myth that the Doctor does not use a gun, and there's a list of as long as my arm that the Doctor actually using a gun in a scenario, sometimes as a tool, sometimes as a weapon. I mean, the Doctor has vaporized people before, so that's one that I absolutely dislike, and it's driven a lot by the fans. The Doctor has used guns and will continue to do so. There's just a general dislike of using them.
Okay.
But he won't turn a gun into a banana. I think the most important motif that keeps coming back. One of my favorite moments was in The Sound of Drums when we find out that the Doctor chose that name, that name of the Doctor, because the Doctor's instinct is to help people. And no matter what you do with the Doctor is always a hero. The Doctor is always somebody who shows up in the big blue box and makes things better than they were before the TARDIS arrived. And that's the most important part, is that the Doctor is a hero. And no matter what face the Doctor is wearing, that's always going to be true. And that's what makes the character so great, is that the Doctor is always there to help people and to make things better.
Okay.
One of the most glorious moments was when he cried out, "Everybody lives!" when Eccleston did that, which was glorious. And that was like the perfect Doctor moment.
Okay. Anyone else?
Does queer coding count as a trope or a motif?
I'm not sure what that means.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much to go back because I already got, and I don't know what that means. So queer coding is from the days of the Hays Code, basically, where writers would code a character as queer because they could not be canonically.
I'm sorry. I thought you said clear coating.
Oh, queer coding. But this often happens with villains, and the idea from the people creating these characters is that they would associate queer traits with villainous traits, which for a lot of young queer kids did the opposite, So we weren't we were attracted to those villain characters instead of being turned off by them. But the reason I bring it up is because one of the characters that always comes up when queer coding starts to be discussed is the Master. And I mean, I love it. I love the history of it. Knowing that there were queer people working on the show too adds a layer to it. And then, I mean, you can say that Pertwee's Doctor was certainly queer coded as well. So going back and looking at these classic shows through a queer lens, through an LGBTQ lens, is I don't know if it's a trope or a motif, but it's a thing that I love to do as a fan. Say, how do we make it gayer? Because let's always make it gayer.
I love what different eras of the show say about different eras of not just television production, but what we expect from television. I mean, especially the early 60s version of it is, it's short. There's an informative aspect to it. It needs to be there. That was part of the remit. And then we get to the 70s and it's, action crazy. And, we get to the 80s and there's, it's grimdark, a bit more grimdark than it used to be. And then you get to the modern series, which is, again, just what we expect from the modern flavor of television. Serialized, really good writing, interesting characters, whether it falls into a sci-fi plot or not. It's the kind of thing that we expect when we, sit down to watch something.
Yeah. Great points. Okay. So, it's been so much fun. You guys have enjoyed our wonderful spinning wheel o topics, and there's so much you can talk about when it comes to Doctor Who. Is there any final thing that we didn't cover that you feel like is worth mentioning when it comes to Doctor Who?
Derek Jacobi is the best Master.
Can I pose a lightning round question?
Go.
Somebody comes to you, has never seen Doctor Who before. You get to show them one single episode. What do you show them?
The first episode.
First episode of what?
The very first episode. I actually think that's the best spot. I love that.
An Unearthly Child. Okay.
Yeah.
The omnibus of City of Death.
That was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Sorry.
death.
But because it has more of a flavor and a tone of
That's
what
not
the
a lightning
show
round,
is
no
like.
reasons.
Yeah.
There we go. Michael.
Robot.
Yeah.
Mine is Blink.
Mine actually is Sea Devils, and I know I've talked about it before, but I have
Any of those would be good choices, though.
My second choice would be the first Amy Pond one, the name of which I know, but I can't think of it at the moment, because I've seen people start there and really get sucked in.
Oh, the 11th hour.
The 11th hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 11th hour. That one, I've seen actual introductions used with that one, and it seemed like a really good starting point.
Okay. And as far as recommendations for other things than the TV show, and people should get into lightning round question to steal Sue's wonderful idea. Sue, you go first.
Wait, what's the question?
Okay, what is something other than the actual original, like the TV show, classic and new, side of that you're like, here, you like Doctor Who, like, here, you need this.
Okay, so if what you like about Doctor Who is like the era of the 10th and 11th Doctor, I'm gonna say check out Warehouse 13.
Okay, all right, Jam.
I really, other than the television show, the recent PSVR Doctor Who game was pretty cool as far as just immersion into the show. It's short, which is pretty good for VR, so you don't get headaches, but it's good.
Okay, Keith.
I'm going to be slightly self-serving and recommend a lot of the short story anthologies that were done by both Virgin and Big Finish over the years. There's some really good little stories that were done that really captured Doctor Who pretty well. They're hard to find now, but
what is linear adult Doctor Who fiction?
Somebody who wrote Choose Your Own Adventure stuff
Okay.
was an American who came before me, so I have to qualify that.
That's cool.
I have to say native born because John Peel is a naturalized American citizen, the bastard.
Okay, Josh, what would you give this?
I would say I absolutely love the special that they did about the making of Doctor Who. I can't think of the title at the moment.
Oh, the one for the 50th?
Yeah. And the Five-ish Doctor reboot, which is one of the funniest things I've ever seen, which, if anyone hasn't seen it, is some of the actors who didn't make it into the movie trying to get onto the movie and sneaking around. They get David Tennant to like prop the back door open so they can come in, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It has a lot of background mythos stuff in it, including David Tennant's wife in labor while her dad is trying to sneak in. It's such a wonderful thing.
And Ian McKellen also.
Michael.
If people like time travel stories and time travelers doing good and helping people along the way, my go-to is always Quantum Leap.
That is totally fair. It's definitely something. I think I would give people all the Children in Need. Everything with Children in Need. Not just the Doctor Who stuff, but everything that comes out for the Children in Need specials are they're really, really, really good. And they kind of get ignored. And I think that they're completely worth it. Anything Children in Need, I think you should definitely watch.
Some of the sport relief stuff as well.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. But thank you guys so much for this crazy wild idea of a panel, and with our random wheel, you guys have been absolutely lovely. And thank you to the fans for watching us. And you can find the BritTrack at BritTrack on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, as well as Instagram. And you can find these wonderful people at this wonderful location. Insert slide here, Rob. Thank you so much again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful DragonCon. Bye, guys.
Bye everybody.